Salisbury steak is something that reminds me of my childhood, sitting in front of the TV with the TV dinner, mashed potatoes and all that. And I wanted to recreate it for my kids, but I didn't want to get them a TV dinner. I wanted to make it fresh. And I think it's delicious, and I've made it for many friends and family. They kind of look at me funny when I tell them I'm making it because they too remember those TV dinners. But once they have it, they love it, and they ask me to make it all the time. I got it on my blog because I think it's wonderful, and I think you'll love it too. I'm making Salisbury steak, and when doing so, you want to start with ground beef, and then you're going to add all these ingredients. Parsley, but I'm using fresh parsley. My recipe says dried parsley. I'm also doing some diced garlic, and then some breadcrumbs, about a ½ cup. I like using grated onion because I don't like big chunks of onion in my steak, and on top of that, I feel like it adds a lot of the flavor from just the juice. You grate about a half. Personally, I grate just until it gets to a point where I'm afraid I'm gonna grate my fingers. Scrape all that goodness in there. And then I add the egg. That's 2 eggs. I beat them up a little bit so that it's less doing it when you're squishing it with your hands. About a teaspoon of salt. And then about probably a ½ teaspoon of pepper. And then we're just gonna squish it together. It's kind of like doing meatloaf, but you're gonna form them into patties, like little steaks. And then once you get it all equally mashed together, get all the egg in there, the breadcrumbs, all the seasoning, you take a little bit, about enough for 1 steak, and you just start forming them in that classic oval shape that you remember in your TV dinner. So it ended up making 5 regular size. I did one little mini one for my little Brody. And you know, it all depends on how big you make them and how much you got. And so what we'll do in a little bit is we'll grill them up, and then they'll go into the oven. I'm gonna start with adding a tablespoon of butter. And I'm gonna saute the onions in with a tablespoon of butter. And cook these until they get soft. Okay, so they're nice and soft and a little bit brown, just the way I like them. What I'm gonna do is turn off the heat, take them and place them in the dish that I'm going to bake the Salisbury steak in. We're gonna saute the patties in this butter. They don't need to be cooked all the way through because we are gonna cook them in the oven. Just brown on each side, a little bit crisp on each side. Okay, I'm gonna add the butter. Turn the heat on medium. This is making this luscious gravy. You can use a beef broth. I use a consommé. It's what came when I found the recipe. This is what they recommended. And honestly, I've done both because I didn't have consommé, and I felt like it didn't taste as good. It had a different aftertaste that I didn't like. So basically what we're doing right now is we're making a roux. the butter and the flour. Gotta cook the flour in a bit so it doesn't have that taste. And then we're gonna slowly add the consommé. As soon as all those bits are off, okay, I'm gonna slowly add it in. It's gonna get thick. That was 1 can. I'm gonna add 1 more because I want the meat completely covered when I'm cooking it. Plus, the gravy cooks down a lot and thickens up a lot, so you think this feels like a lot of gravy, but it really isn't. Okay, now I'm just gonna pour the gravy over the meat. And it completely covers it. And then it's gonna go in the oven. It's bubbling hot. This has got a perfect brown gravy. I usually spoon it over just a little bit over the meat, get it all covered before serving it. Even sometimes, you know, because I'm using ground beef, I skim the fat a little bit before serving. I'm gonna let this rest also. And I like it served over potatoes. Some people like it over rice. I like it with a little bit of greens on the side. Give it a try, like my video, and don't forget to subscribe.